Hi, and thanks for joining me for this session on HR and AI, which we've called HR Problems, AI Solutions. So during this short presentation, we'll be talking about how AI is making its way into HR. We'll be talking about why HR professionals are embracing these new tools, and also about how some HR professionals are even using AI to transition their HR department from what's traditionally been an admin-focused support role into more of a strategic partner role within their organisation. But first, I think it's important to quickly discuss why AI is so important and why it's so significant. So buzzwords come and go, but AI is not going to go, and I want to explain why. Now, if you look at this graphic, we can see throughout history certain technology waves have transformed the way we do things. And this graphic shows you some of the most significant technology waves that we've experienced as a species, starting with the Stone Age, way back as early as 3000 BC, and working right through the discovery of steam power, electric power, and eventually, of course, the age of information storage and communication. Or to put that into a more real-world context, we could think of that as the age of the internet, the age of the smartphone, and all of the tools around that which have helped to revolutionise the way we access and share information. So that last technology wave, this communication and information wave, started somewhere probably in the mid to late 1900s and peaked in growth around 2007 or 8, which is when the iPhone gained massive popularity. The thing that makes a technology wave different from other cool advancements in technology, of which there are many, is that it transforms not just the specific area it was built to address, but rather it transforms a host of other things around it, which actually unlocks massive potential. You know, a technology wave has the potential to transform entire life cycles and cultures. So the AI wave, what's different here and why is it considered a technology wave at all? Well, some experts say that AI is actually going to dwarf all the previous technology that has ever taken place. And just like the seismic shift we saw when people piled into the mobile phone boom, AI is going to impact pretty much every single aspect of our lives. In other words, the times are changing, and that means that the times are changing not just for technology geeks, but for society as a whole. And yes, that includes HR. So AI is going to impact HR significantly. I don't want to get too hung up on the detail of how, but in a nutshell, it works like this. So firstly, there's a shift in the HR role. So traditional HR roles are kind of as an information gatekeeper, and that's changing. So number two, the impact of AI tools. AI tools, what they do is they democratize access to information. In other words, they make this information more easily available to more people. Which leads on to number three, the reduced need for information control. So you know, there's less of a reliance on this one central body to control all of this centralized information because it's so easy to access information. So that leads on to number four, which is that it poses a challenge for HR. HR must evolve from gatekeeping to leveraging AI for strategic, innovative people management, which, if you can do right, brings you on to number five, which is a focus on value addition. So the focus is now on how HR can use AI to enhance organisational development and employee strategies. But big things are going to change. So 76% of HR leaders believe that if their organisation does not adopt and implement AI solutions, such as generative AI, which is what ChatGPT is, and you'll probably be familiar with this tool already. But yes, around 3/4 of HR leaders believe that if their organisation does not adopt and implement such tools within the next 12 to 24 months, then they will be lagging behind in, compared to organisations where HR leaders do get the hang of these tools. So they'll be lagging in success if they don't get the hang of these tools in the next 12 to 24 months. Now, many HR leaders are a little bit stumped about where to start. So a good place to start with something like this is to have an approach or a framework which lets you assess technology trends effectively in order to make smart decisions on whether to adopt new AI solutions into HR. Now, such a framework could look a little something like this that we've got in front of us, which is sort of a 3-step, and you can keep cycling these steps. So whenever a new technology comes to the market, you can assess it this way. We're going to look at this in terms of how we assess HR and their adoption of AI. So step 1, you distinguish reality from the myth. So that means you have to separate what all of the marketing hype and all of the social media frenzy is saying and work out what the tool actually does. Okay? Once you've done that, you then use this reality to establish what the true potential of this technology is. What will these capabilities allow you to do within your department or within your organization? And then finally, now you know what this tool can do, you know what this technology can do, you've just got to compare this with whatever your measure of success is. What are you trying to achieve, and how well will this new tool help you to do this? So you can use these 3 steps to assess any sort of new technology. You could also use this to assess individual AI tools as and when they inevitably get released. But let's just take a moment to follow these 3 steps now and use them to assess the overall growth of AI technology in terms of how it relates to HR. So the first step is in assessing a new technology trend such as generative AI is to distinguish the myths from the reality and to eliminate any preconceptions. So here's a few I've seen circulated. Myth 1. Tech will replace employees when it performs better than they do in current tasks. Now this is a myth that's been around whenever anything, when machines came and were displacing factory workers, the worry always is that, technology is going to replace the human. The reality of this, though, is that AI tools are actually designed to enhance human capabilities. So, they can be useful in delegating tasks, but the technology will be pervasive in most employees' activities as opposed to replacing their activities. So you'll find that it becomes intertwined with what they're doing rather than taking over what they're doing in most cases. The second myth I've seen a lot of is that HR leaders are holding back on AI-powered tool implementation because they have concerns. Now, it's true that HR leaders do have concerns, and we will address that a little later. But the reality there is actually, despite data privacy, bias and ethical concerns, AI is being deployed at a rapid pace. Already, 52% of HR leaders who participated in a 2023 Gartner benchmarking session stated that they were exploring potential use cases and opportunities when it came to generative AI, which, by the way, is a subset of broader AI. So when we talk about AI for HR, we're not necessarily just talking about ChatGPT in an HR context, but of course, ChatGPT is the most popularized recent example and is a form of generative AI, which is a subset of broader AI. So the next step, once you've separated sort of the reality from the myths, involves HR leaders establishing the true potential benefits of AI. And most importantly, aligning these potential use cases to organisational goals. Now, to do this, the HR technology lead, and maybe that's you, maybe it's somebody else in your organisation or within your team, but the HR technology lead will need to work with IT, they'll need to work with legal, with compliance, and with industry or subject matter experts to understand the true potential of the technology and then report that back to the HR leadership team and, in some cases, the CHRO. So focus on how AI will help to alleviate any functional pains you're experiencing, but also how it will meet your goals by allowing you to perform activities better, faster, or cheaper. Now, in this graphic, you can see there are some of the primary goals that Gartner has reported for how HR leaders intend to use generative AI. And as you can see, the biggest reported use is to improve efficiency, with only actually 15% of people saying, of HR leaders saying that they don't intend to use generative AI in their HR processes at all. So the final step in these 3 steps to analyse the effectiveness of new tools is to determine whether or not adoption should go ahead. So you've got the reality of what the tool is, you've understood what it can do for you in your organisation. But now is the part where you assess and score this against your success criteria. Each organisation will actually have a different criteria, so I don't want to say what you should or shouldn't base this on. But some of the key areas HR leaders tend to look at include governance, workforce readiness, risks and ethics, and of course the vendor landscape. And remember that while AI is creating excitement and hype, 77% of HR leaders, which is a lot, are also concerned about things such as accuracy and verbosity when applying the technology for their business use cases. There are also currently no clear assurances of privacy or confidentiality with many of these tools. And in addition, any information posted into many of these, especially the generative AI tools, may be used to further train the model, and not everybody is comfortable with that. So if these concerns are currently front of mind for you, then you're not alone. But before I go into any more detail on that, I just want to talk about the main areas where AI is making its way into HR in relation to the work HR is doing already on a day-to-day basis, and then in relation to the things that AI is really good at, because those are the connection points where you're going to see AI tools really have the biggest influence on HR. The reason I want to talk about these points is because they're what have helped our own team to build our AI roadmap in terms of deciding how we're going to build AI technology into sense, especially in terms of the areas where users of our HR system will be able to use AI for the best and most effective purposes. So let's just go through this list quickly. HR is responsible for knowing or finding the right answer. Now, you'll be very familiar with this. So, if you work in HR, questions ranging from, hey, how much holiday entitlement do I have left, through to, hey, what do I do if I want to raise a grievance against my line manager? Now, knowing or finding the right answer has been a common HR task for as long as HR has been a discipline. And guess what? AI is really good at searching for, consuming, and then synthesizing information into small bite-sized answers. So whether that means looking up terms within a complicated policy, or whether it means searching for entitlements within an employee's record, there's a huge use case for AI in helping HR to know or find the right answer. The next is writing letters and policies. Not the most glamorous side of HR, but probably one of the more time-consuming when that is a task that's on your plate. So anybody who has ever used generative AI before will know that one of its biggest strengths is in taking a brief or a set of instructions. Now, in this case, that brief could include a whole bunch of regulatory guidelines as well, and then turning them into pieces of writing in any format or any style that you can think of. So there's going to be a clear use case there between AI and HR. Something else HR has to do a lot of is summarizing information. So whether that's creating a summary of a performance review to justify a pay adjustment, for example, or simply explaining a complex policy in more layman terms, HR often has to read long and complicated documentation and then feed it back in shorter, simpler chunks. And again, this is something that AI has proved itself to be very, very good at, summarizing data. The fourth point on this list is that HR often has to engage in a lot of communication, and often this is with different people who they may not always know very well, depending on the size of the organization or the ratio of sort of HR people to sort of sizes of teams and things like that. Now, AI is good at helping two parties to stimulate interesting and practical conversations based on a huge range of goals. So whether it's a fun get to know you type of conversation, or even a let's work together to solve this problem type of conversation, artificial intelligence is very good at stimulating conversation. And finally, HR brings with it a huge requirement for people management. In other words, making decisions to do with people based on many factors, including performance, behavior, policies, etc. And AI is very, very good at assisting with basic reasoning using lots of different data points. And that's something that the human brain isn't always naturally wired to do. We have a tendency when we reason with data to focus on points that feel more important to ourselves personally, And this is based on our culture or biases that we've learned as we've grown up and as we've experienced life and so on. Now, AI does have its issues with bias, but it does not have the same personal bias that we have as individuals. AI has more of a collective bias, but it also gives a more collective and impartial reflection of humankind as a whole without those individual nuances. And this is because it doesn't feel like certain things are important or not important. It doesn't miss key details because it simply, doesn't personally think they're important. It sees what it sees and it takes that into account. So for this reason, AI is likely to become a huge help in supporting the basic reasoning side of people management, which I think is the fifth area where AI, something it's really good at, is going to end up working an awful lot with HR over the years and decades to come. So of course, we've touched on it already. AI, yes, it's creating excitement and it's creating hype, but we have to remember, and I did mention it in an earlier slide, that AI is not perfect, especially not in its infancy right now. And there are plenty of issues and concerns that HR leaders are rightly worried about as AI begins to blossom from its infancy. This slide has a few screenshots of examples of things that people are concerned about. But I mentioned already 77% of HR leaders are concerned about things like accuracy and verbosity when applying the technology for business use cases. This is concerns such as, will this AI tool give me accurate information? Or how can I be sure it won't write an essay when I actually just want a 2-word answer? There are also currently no clear assurances of privacy or confidentiality with many AI tools. As mentioned before, any information you post may be used to further train the model, and you might not be comfortable with that. You can't instantly know which tools will or won't use your data for purposes such as these. So given these concerns, organizations have to issue guidance, I think, about the potential risks of generative AI. And HR guidance, if you're going to issue that, needs to be clear. And it should be that if employees are using generative AI tools, they should probably not be using sensitive or confidential details in any of their prompts, and they should err on the side of caution. With this said, we've recognised this huge shift that AI is making on HR, and we're not going to be able to stop this shift. I mean, we wouldn't want to, because the upside is phenomenal. What we've done is we've built our HR system, the Sense HR system, firmly around an AI roadmap. Now, there's a lot of companies. I want to explain to you what an AI roadmap kind of looks like, because there's a lot of companies trying to jump onto the AI bandwagon right now. And what we're tending to see is kind of 5 stages of progression almost that companies seem to be moving through as they jump into this. Now, it starts at this very left side here, which is the stage of no automation. And this is companies that haven't worked any sort of bot or AI capability into their system at all. So most companies, I think, realise that if they stay here, they will fall behind. The next stage is programmed bots. Now, this is sort of the most basic implementation of AI or automation into a piece of software or a system. This would be a bot that follows a set of instructions in order to execute actions. However, rather than being some that can reason or provide conversational responses, it's more of a programmed tool. If you think about some of the older support chatbots that have been around for a while and that some companies use on their websites, it may be a simple recommendation of a help article based on the bot detecting a certain keyword in the user's question. That's what we're talking about when we talk about programmed bots. Number 3, informational answers. This is where I think most companies are trying to get to at the moment, and which is working in AI bots that can provide conversational style information and answers to basic questions. Generally speaking, though, these are using a generic data set that it has been trained on. And when I say a generic data set, I mean a data set that applies to all AI tools across all systems, etc. So it's very, very intelligent sounding AI conversation, but these informational answers that they give you are based on generic data sets. The real benefits come from systems that can produce dynamic answers for you, which means not just generic information from a shared database, rather information that pertains to you and your company's information, such as finding out who from your head office over in Oxford has taken the most holiday leave in the last 6 months, for example. And this is the stage we're at right now with Sense. Our AI technology can work with you and with your HR data to help you actually understand what's happening inside your company and to deliver the answers and the information that you need based on your database as and when you need it on a day-to-day basis. And then on this sort of AI roadmap, you've got the next stage, which is the more advanced stage, and it's the stage that we're working towards right now, which is the stage of taking action. So this means AI that can not just find information for you that relates to you, but AI that can actually take actions on your behalf inside the system. You know, imagine saying, hey, we're giving all our staff new company phones. Could you build me a screen in my HR system to track company equipment? And then your HR system simply goes away and actually builds that screen for you. And suddenly that is now a screen inside your HR system that this AI has just built for you because you, in a conversation, told it you'd like it to. Now that's what we're working towards at Sense, and we're not far off that either. In fact, I think the next slide is actually about our roadmap. Yes, it is. So we've already implemented a lot of this into our system, and you can actually see a lot of this in action if you book a demo with one of our team members. Here's our general roadmap over the next 6 months. We've split our development into 2 areas, one of which is Copilot. Now, this is the name we've given to sort of inbuilt tools that will help you as you navigate through certain features within our HR system. And these are up and running and live right now. So if you're creating a letter or a policy, for example, you just enter a prompt and ask our Copilot to generate the template for you, then edit it as you see fit. So that's on the left here, compose. If you go to this middle section, summarize. If you're summarizing information in your HR system, you could ask Copilot to give you the key points that you need from a particularly complex screen or policy or record. And then you have autofill. So, for example, you need to populate a new employee record, right? You know, traditionally, the way you do this, you type name, address into all of the different fields. But in this case, you can just tell Copilot a bit about the employee and let the Copilot actually pull the information it needs from whatever you've entered into this box and add it into the correct fields itself. Or another good example of autofill actually is if you needed to upload an expense receipt, for example. Now, instead of having to type out every single field automatically, our Copilot could just look at the picture, then say, okay, that's the cost of this expense, that's the tax, that's the type of expense receipt this is, etc. This one is actually very interesting because we're getting to the stage where not only can AI auto-populate an expense claim form, but on the other half of our development pipeline, we have AMI. Now, AMI is a little deeper than our Copilot. AMI can generate dynamic content using your HR dataset, and it can even use your HR dataset to help you make decisions. So remember that expense receipt we just uploaded? Well, AMI can actually not just upload that expense receipt, but can read your expenses policy and flag up the fact that actually you're trying to claim for 12 pints of lager on a Friday night, which goes against the company's alcohol policy. And we're getting to the stage where AMI will be able to help you take actions within the system too, whether that's building custom screens and workflows that help you run your day-to-day, or whether that's automatically updating data based on key events that are happening. Now, if you want to get a demo of our AI functionality, you can do so by visiting www.sense.hr and fill out any of the contact forms that you see, and one of our experts will be able to take you through whatever you want to see. But for now, that's it from me. I hope you found this session useful, and it was a pleasure to run through it with you.